I just sit here and I wonder how we can possibly be having this conversation. How can we possibly not take in all seriousness the tragic situation of these children who are fleeing conditions that are unimaginable to us, coming to this country, believing this country has the ability to somehow protect them. But yet we sit here, important as what we are, senators and people, high-ranking officials, saying we don't have the ability to protect kids. There's no law. Have you ever, Mr. Greenberg, when you looked at this gap in so-called authority, which I agree with Senator McCaskill doesn't exist, but when you believed it exists, did you say, my goodness, we don't have the ability to do background checks. We don't have the ability to do home visits on a sponsor. We need to go to Congress and get an emergency bill passed to protect children. Did anyone in the administration have that conversation?
Senator Heitkamp, what I can say is that we have had very active conversations.
Do you understand why we're angry? Because every time we ask you a question, you go, how am I going to answer that? Answer it by telling us what conversations you had. This was your obligation to protect these children. What conversations did you have, beyond what we see here in these emails, that would suggest to us that you put the safety and well-being of these children in a bill that was passed to prevent trafficking? You put the safety and well-being of these children first. What conversation did you have when you saw this obstacle that you've been telling Senator McCaskill that it exists in the law to change the law so that you would actually have access? Because I can tell you, as a former state official, if the state ran a foster care program under 4E like this, without home visits, they wouldn't be getting 4E dollars very long. There's no state agency that runs a foster care program like this. And I think we can completely appreciate the extent to which DHS was overrun. But going back again to Senator McCaskill's point, this was 2008. This wasn't the big surge. This is a long-standing problem. So what conversations, or let's ask you this from your opinion. Did you ever once think, I need to get the law fixed because these children aren't getting protected? You have a strong background and a strong history in protecting children. Were you ever personally troubled by your inability to protect children?
Yes. And let me say more to answer that directly. There was some discussion before about this shouldn't just be a paper process. And for me, this has never been a paper process. I can tell you that I have visited down in the Rio Grande Valley 4 times over the last 2 years. And when I go, I talk with children, and I talk with providers, and I talk with their staff, and I talk with advocates,
and we all do. We've all been at the border, and I've spent time. But tell me what you came back from that. Senator Carper does a great job. We're here to learn. So when you came back listening to those children, what policy change recommendations did you make at DHS to prevent this from happening?
Yeah. What I'd emphasize is that it's very clear the way the law currently works that we've got limited authority around home studies, limited authority around post-release services, and I have made that, Senator Heitkamp, if I can explain, I have conveyed that very directly to this committee in my prior testimony. When I do public talk about the program, I make very clear the limited role that HHS plays.
Yeah, and I don't mean to belabor this, but when I was Attorney General, we have a boarding school, an Indian boarding school that we were hearing rumors about behaviors, and no one wanted to take jurisdiction. No one, everybody said, no, that's somebody else, and I just thought somebody has got to take responsibility for this, and so We just stepped into the void. And so occasionally, don't you think it's smart, even when you see something involving the welfare of children, to step into the void, to challenge the legal ramifications and say, let's do the right thing and sort it out later. And the problem that we have here is that there are bad people in this country. There's bad people all over the world. And, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't ask the question for Senator Tester, who had to leave. So I just want to say, okay, now we've got this horrible situation, which has been revealed, that's the subject of this hearing. And it's Senator Tester, and my understanding, that the egg farm is still in business. Is that true? The egg farm is still operating?
I have no knowledge other than press accounts. So.
Okay. What do you think happens when this all gets swept under the rug, when we're trying to really get at the bad guys? Get at the people who do this, who think that they can continue, because these kids are invisible, continue to operate with impunity, to operate businesses that are nothing short of modern-day slavery, when we don't report it, when we don't have testimony from these kids, because the kids are in the wind, they're gone. So my point, I guess, is that not only did we put kids at risk, but getting to prosecutions for people who do very bad things become impossible when we don't have the children protected. And so I would just say that I hope that what good comes out of this hearing, which has been, I think, more contentious than any of us thought it would get, that you guys really take this back and say, what's the perfect system? Maybe we can't always have the perfect system, but at least the worst state foster care system. Can we do as good as the worst case foster care system in the federal government when we're protecting children? And I think that is, I look forward to your recommendations on what we can do, not only from a law change, but also from a resource management change. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.